The Leadership in Law podcast is powered by Law Marketing Zone. Transform your firm's digital presence with expert marketing solutions tailored exclusively for attorneys at lawmarketingzone.com.
Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Dave Coleman, to the show today. Dave is the president of Coleman Jet Solutions and a professional pilot with 35 years in the aviation industry. With over 7,500 flight hours, experience spanning aircraft maintenance, commercial flying, and private jet acquisitions, Dave brings a rare, full-spectrum perspective to aviation. He still flies today and donates his time in aircraft to Lifeline pilots, helping patients in need of travel for medical care. I'm excited to have you here, Dave. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
I grew up in the business. My father wanted to be a professional pilot and just slipped into the aircraft trading business by accident, essentially, and made a career of it. And I grew up in this environment from the very, very beginning in this entrepreneurial aviation world, spanning from commercial airlines all the way to what I do today with private jets. I basically had a very interesting start to my career. My father had kidney failure and he could no longer travel. He couldn't fly planes anymore. So as a really very young pup, he would send me to Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia and Dubai and South America to basically be his eyes and ears. And through that process, I kind of it was like a trial by fire, so to speak, of this industry. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. Interesting. I'm fascinated about the whole thing. From your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions law firm leaders have about private aviation?
So the biggest misconception that we have today is that it's a luxury, right? That it's exclusive and only for the very few. That's the biggest misconception. There's also a misconception about the cost. And I can explain that a little bit further. But when we help clients, small firms, mostly small and mid-sized firms, think about getting into their first airplane, we do what we call a feasibility study. So actually look at the needs of the client and try to match that up with what actually works from a budget perspective. In terms of what this is really all about is time. Airplanes are time machines, and they allow you to essentially expand your footprint, offset your existing costs for travel, and then essentially have a flying boardroom or a flying office in the sky where, from a lawyer's perspective, that's billable time. These are flying conference rooms. You and your fellow partners and other attorneys in the firm can use that time productively, and it's private, right? The ultimate private conference room, so to speak. You can't do that on the airlines. You can't have a meeting about confidential information while the passengers around you are snooping and looking at your computer screen and seeing what you type. So from that perspective, it's extremely good productivity tool.
I love that. I love the idea of it being a tool, a business tool instead of an expense, because like first class or business class, it's just an expense. You can't get any work done on the plane.
And
Yeah,
also we
exactly.
have with the advent of super high speed satellite based internet, you can actually do conference calls, video conferencing in the air nowadays, which is
Oh, really?
something that wasn't possible just years ago.
So, what type of law firms tend to benefit most from private aircraft access, like geography, practice area, or growth stage?
So the law firms that really, I see a lot of plaintiffs type trial attorneys that use private aviation. Any of the firms that are trying to grow their footprint outside of their region. Essentially, if you're a small law firm or a mid-sized law firm and you want to grow into become a national law firm, this allows you to do it without having to really expand your footprint. I have a client in Roanoke, Virginia. Now, Roanoke is really a very difficult place to get to, and he has a small firm there. He has clients in California, San Francisco, California, Arizona, Texas, Colorado, and along the eastern seaboard. They fly there, they have a Cessna Citation, which is a light jet, and they fly the airplane about 500 hours a year. And that is all billable, and that's what makes it unique.
I love that my thought was just thinking from one side of the state to the other, but that makes it so much attainable to be able to cross country.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is that what we do when we help firms, whether they're law firms or other types of clients, we're really looking to see what's feasible, right? And what makes the most sense for each firm, depending on their practice, what type of practice, what their client profile is. And we try to fit that because it's not just about the plane, it's about the mission. And what are you planning to, where are you going? Because different types of airplanes fit different types of needs, and different types of airplanes fit different types of clients. We have some folks that we work with, they use a light turboprop, and that's an airplane that allows them to travel around the Great Lakes or along the eastern seaboard in the Northeast extremely effectively. And the turboprop is a great airplane because you can get into the little tiny airports that are out in the middle of nowhere that are only a couple minutes drive to your client. Whereas, for example, if you want to get to Springfield, Minnesota, which you probably don't even know where it is on the map, right? You would fly into Minneapolis and drive about an hour and a half, or you could fly right into the airport in Springfield, Minnesota, and be within 3 minutes of your client. So these are the types of time savings that you're dealing with. Again, it's something that we analyze, we help folks analyze to make sure it's the right decision. And a lot of times it's not. A lot of times after we have a brief conversation and we start talking about budgeting, it becomes something that's not possible.
Now, when you think
Maybe,
about budgeting, are you talking about buying an office, the staff that would be in that office, all of those things that would cost to put a new office in a new location?
yeah, we are. Essentially, it depends on how open my clients are with their plans, right? A lot of clients are a little bit more, they're not going to tell me everything that they're thinking, right?
Right.
So I have to get an intimation. But that would be, I'd say, look, are you planning to open an office, or do you want to just extend, or maybe you make it a smaller office and then use your staff that's here at your headquarters location, bring them in to supplement when there's a large project that you're working on, or a large trial, or a large case that you're working on, depending on what type of attorney you are. We have we have tax advice, we have tax lawyers that use aircraft. So there's all sorts of different all sorts of different options depending on what it is that you're trying to do and how you're trying to grow. And some of them already are a larger law firm, but they just want to expand their control over their firm a little bit more. And going to the other office is allowing them to be seen.
Right.
I'm going to tell you one thing about my business. I have a small airplane that I use for my business. It's my strategic advantage. So much of what we see today is conference calls and video conferencing. I can tell you that the face-to-face interaction is a strategic and competitive advantage for me and my firm. If it's between someone who's willing to come sit down and discuss something with you in person versus someone who's doing it from 1,000 miles away, I can tell you that I'm more likely to not only earn, but retain that business over the long term because of that ability to do that.
All right. Client acquisition. That's a good one as well.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
and you often talk about access being more important than cost. And that's basically what you mean by that? Is it you can just be more accessible?
Yeah, essentially it's access. Now, but I want to talk a little bit about access here because I think that there's some misconceptions about access. The other option to ownership, of course, is chartering an airplane. And so I put charter over here on this side of the spectrum and then ownership over on this side of the spectrum. And as you go from charter towards ownership, and there's different steps, there's a fractional option and shared ownership option, et cetera. As you transition from charter all the way to ownership, you're increasing control.
Right.
Right. And as you increase control over the asset, you're increasing access. Charter is a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful way to get into utilizing this tool. The challenge with charter is that if the charter operator controls the asset, you're on their schedule. The availability of the aircraft is limited to when it's available. With ownership, it's available to you 100% of the time. And so if you're in the business or if your firm sometimes needs to deploy people on an immediate basis, charter may not be the right option for you. So
Right.
ownership is control, it's access. Yes, it's the most expensive, but if you're able to utilize the aircraft, those costs actually come down per hour to where it becomes far less expensive than charter, depending on the utilization of the airplane.
And two, with the charter, you're assuming the airplane is going to be where you need it to be, and you don't have to wait for a repositioning. Where if you own it, then you can also move your entire team quickly, where you can't necessarily do that if you're flying commercial.
That's exactly correct. The other thing that I've talked to a couple attorneys about is, and these are trial attorneys, so different than, say, more corporate attorneys. A lot of times they just don't know when the judge is going to dismiss or call it a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may show up at a trial and it lasts 15 minutes and then you're done, but you've just scheduled yourself as if you're going to be here all day.
Right.
Right. And so now without the airplane, especially if you're coming out of California, there's a limited number of flights towards that end of the day because of the time zone that are going eastbound. So a lot of times you're forced to stay overnight and wait until a morning flight. Whereas if you had your own airplane, you're immediately 15 minutes to the airport, off and back home.
Right.
And what that means for productivity, what that means for employee retention, just knowing that you have access to an airplane in certain circumstances will be a deciding factor whether or not you want to stay with a particular firm or not. I'm going to go work for them and make more money, but I'm going to be, I don't want to use the word slumming it, but I'm going to be stuck flying around on the airlines all the time. Whereas with this firm, I may not be making as much money, but I know I can get home every night.
Yeah.
That's
Efficiency as
big.
well. Yeah.
Well, just being able to get back home to your family.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things associated with being able to come and go on your own schedule.
I agree. That makes sense. And talking about the biggest operational or strategic advantages for partners and leadership teams, that's if they need to move quickly between markets, that's certainly a competitive advantage, like you were saying. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. If you're looking at two different firms, the challenge I have is I know aviation law, right?
Yeah.
That's my knowledge base, but it's in general. whether it's a law firm or any other type of business. These are strategic advantages when it comes to key employees, right? And I guess, and even when it comes to nurturing clients, again, like we discussed before, it's face-to-face is a strategic advantage.
I agree. Now, you mentioned as far as ownership and your feasibility study and structuring ownership correctly so it doesn't become a commercial operation. What should firms understand about how private aircraft ownership is typically structured?
So there's essentially first of all, in aviation, there's all different permutations of how you structure ownership. Generally speaking, the first place to start is to look at it from a tax perspective, because this is capital equipment. It's rolling. It can be considered either capital equipment, in which case there are significant tax benefits from a depreciation perspective, or it can be considered rolling stock. And in that case, you get the benefits of depreciation, but now the problem with rolling stock is it's a charter airplane, replacing it with a charter certificate. So there's two ways of doing this. Either A, the company owns the airplane and hires its own pilot, and it controls the asset 100%, or B, it places the airplane with a charter or management company, and the management company takes care of all of the small details. Each one of those has particular advantages. The challenge with management companies for first-time owners is that most first-time owners go into small jets or turboprops because it's a step up the ladder, right? You start small, you get a feel for how it feels to own an airplane, and then if your business starts to expand and you need a larger, more capable aircraft, you move up. The problem is with a small airplane and a management company, some of those management company costs are significantly more than if you just set up your own flight department.
Okay.
So a lot of time when a client comes to me and says, and I review their mission and their profile and their budget, I'll say, okay, we should look at a Cessna Citation, for example, or a Beechcraft King Air or a Pilatus as your first airplane. Those airplanes, you'll need one pilot and contractors to really operate that type of small equipment. You don't need a big apparatus. But as you move up, you may have to switch into a management company, and your pilot will come with, right? Because now you need some more apparatus because it's a little bit more of an aircraft to manage. And the budget for that becomes quite a bit larger, and you can accommodate that based on the size of the airplane, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that you help with the planning when the idea first comes up, and to make sure, because I know firms are going to wonder, how do I offset the cost through billable travel expenses or the strategic use of the aircraft?
If you're enjoying today's episode, let me ask you a question. When someone in your market searches for the type of cases you handle, does your law firm actually show up? And I'm not just talking about Google anymore. I'm talking about Google Maps, local service ads, Google AI overviews, and even platforms like ChatGPT. Because here's the reality. Search has changed, and a lot of law firms are losing cases every month without realizing where the gaps are. Maybe your rankings look fine, but the phone isn't ringing. Maybe your competitors are showing up in places you're not. Or maybe you're spending money with an agency and still can't clearly connect it to signed cases. That's exactly why we created the Law Firm Visibility Audit. At Law Marketing Zone, we help growth-focused law firms uncover where they're losing visibility, calls, and opportunities online. We look at your SEO, Google Business Profile, local service ads, AI search present, and even intake gaps. No pressure, no hard pitch, just clarity. If you want to see how your firm stacks up and where the opportunities are, head over to Law Marketing Zone and request your complimentary Law Firm Visibility Audit. Now let's get back to the show.
So when you're looking at it from a financial perspective, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to say, okay, what does your existing travel budget look like?
Okay.
All right. And what is your growth strategy over the next 5 years? And then we can pretty much calculate out what their existing travel budget would look like and how much it would increase if they stayed with what they're doing now, which is hotels, airfare, rental car, all of those costs, right? And then if you take an airplane, you're going to offset a lot of that because the hotels go away because you're not staying overnight anymore. All the airfare is going away because now you're flying private. And so a lot of rental car, a lot of lunches, lots of dinners, a lot of that stuff goes away because you're in and out.
Yeah, and the incidental overnights because
Now
you
you're
got stuck.
adding on top
Exactly.
of that the cost of the airplane. But now you got the cost of the airplane. So that gets added on, but now you got billable hours, right? And there are certain legal pathways to bill out the use of the airplane as well. Depending on how you set up your ownership structure. There are ways to actually get some reimbursement for the aircraft itself. So at the end of the day, a lot of these costs are simply offset.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of different variables that you can help to plan out to see that it may be a better idea to own your own plane. I love that.
It may be. I'm going to be honest. Most of the time when people call me and we have this discussion, I will come to the conclusion that it may not be the right fit. And I just don't want to go down the path with someone and then at the 11th hour, after I've invested a lot of time, they go, oh, maybe I won't do this. But in a few minutes, I can figure out whether or not it's going to work. Right.
Okay.
So it's really important. If you're going to do this, you really want to talk to the right people. The challenge is in my industry is there's a lot of people that just want to get a deal done. And so no matter what, they're going to try to talk you into buying an airplane, and they'll give you all sorts of stories about how you can make money or it won't cost you anything. And it's going to cost you money.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you money, but the productivity, the time, the employee satisfaction, the strategic opportunities, all of these things are going to make it worthwhile if you have a plan to grow your business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So you've spent decades in aviation across maintenance, flying, acquisitions, ownership. What mistakes do buyers make when entering private aviation for the first time?
The biggest mistake is getting the wrong type of people involved in the process. There's a lot of money that's flowing through these projects. Okay. And what I see oftentimes is many people, you have to understand where people's interests are, right? A charter operator is interested in making sure that you buy the airplane they want to operate.
Okay.
They may have, you'll hear this a lot from a charter operator. We have a wonderful airplane in our fleet and Joe is looking to sell it. So you should buy it and keep it with us. What they're concerned with is the airplane coming off their aircraft operating certificate. Because once an airplane comes off the aircraft operating certificate, the FAA tends to not be so kind to them about putting it back on. So what they're trying to do is keep that plane on their certificate. So they're looking for a buyer. If they have a client that wants to sell, they're desperate to hold on to that airplane. And that airplane may not wind up being the right choice for you. But they're going to try to convince you to buy that plane that's on their certificate because of the challenges they have with the FAA, essentially. So if you're letting the charter operator be the one who's going to be guiding you through this process, just be careful because their interests are this. Now, it may wind up being a great airplane, right? But how do you really know? And so the real question is, it would be like me going to court without an attorney, right? And representing myself.
Yeah.
Any attorney can tell you that's the craziest thing in the world to do. why try to do that with aviation?
It's especially such an investment. You want to, I love the way that you do the analysis, the feasibility study, and then have that conversation. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
That's right. The other thing is that a lot of mistakes is a lot of folks buy too much airplane. They're at the country club or they're at some gathering and someone says, I own a Gulfstream. And then so now they want to look at a Gulfstream. They're flying between Chicago and Detroit. So wrong airplane. A Gulfstream is designed to go to Europe, right?
Okay.
And it costs thousands and thousands of dollars per hour. It's the wrong airplane for the wrong mission. And then the other mistakes that they make is just not structuring the ownership correctly. That I see quite a bit, although that doesn't necessarily impact, it's got a negative economic impact. And the last thing is buying the wrong airplane is a big mistake because obviously, like we just discussed, that's a big challenge. But it really does come down to people. It always comes down to people. Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are their bona fides? Because remember, my business and this business, my particular business, there's no barrier to entry. There's no licensing. I can declare myself an aircraft program Monday and start buying and selling planes on Tuesday.
Okay.
So you have to make sure that you're dealing with the right type of people. I always say the number one, and this isn't life. Was you trust them.
Yeah.
If you don't, some don't learn.
Makes sense. For the law firm leader that may be listening today and curious about private aviation, what would be the first conversation or the first step that they should take to evaluate whether it actually makes sense for their business?
First of all, a lot of people, again, they're shy away from it because of the stigma attached to the luxury and the exclusivity of the ownership. Forget about it. Just think about it as a tool.
Okay.
Think about it as a time machine. Once you get over that, then we can start. First, we start considering why you want to own an airplane. And you got to think about, are you growing your business? And these are all those questions.
Right.
But I would say once you've made that kind of determination that you want to explore it, you need to call someone like me. There's others in this business. I just so happen to be in a unique position in terms of my technical, regulatory, and financial knowledge of aviation, which most brokers, this day, they're just deal makers. I'm not a deal maker. I'm an educator. And I find the right type of solutions. So find someone like me and have that conversation. If it goes somewhere, then explore it, look at the numbers, and then take a flight. If you can, try it out. Charter an airplane. Take a trip in one of your friends or colleagues' airplanes. See what it's like. And if it's something you think you want to explore further, I can guide them through the process.
Interesting. Yeah. And I love the idea of it being billable hours. You're working while your team is there. Excellent. This has been a really great conversation. I've learned a lot about private airlines, their private ownership. I know my listeners might want to reach out to you, connect with you, ask them questions, maybe do one of those feasibility studies. Where would be the best place for them to reach you?
Obviously, they could go to my website, which is colemanjets.com, or they can give us a call. Our number is 847-748-8333. We're here in Chicago. We're the only full-service firm of our kind in Chicago. And we'd love to at least just have a conversation. And if it makes sense, we continue. If it doesn't, that's fine too.
I love that. I'll make sure that all of that is in the show notes for people. And Dave, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time being here today.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. Before you go, I want to make sure that you know about something that could be a real game changer for your firm. If you've been doing the work, showing up, serving clients, but your marketing still isn't producing the caseload you know you deserve, that's exactly the problem Law Marketing Zone was built to solve. My team and I work exclusively with law firms, and we don't do cookie cutter. We build a strategy around your practice, your market, and your goals. More high-quality leads, better cases, less stress, and more profit. Head over to lawmarketingzone.com/book a call and book your free case growth session today. The link is in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.
Before you go, if you're working with a legal marketing agency and still not sure what's driving your cases, it may be time for a second opinion. At Law Marketing Zone, we help law firms uncover the visibility gaps, wasted spend, and missed opportunities that could be costing them cases. Request your complimentary law firm visibility audit at lawmarketingzone.com and get clarity on what's really happening in your marketing. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Leadership in Law.